Has the renown of Tempest increased since I used its ability? I will tell you. Yes, actually. Defeated a powerful enemy, and yeah, it's gone up. I'm not sure how the renown will affect anything, but we'll keep watching it. Okay, there we go. River break. If we want to go on here, then maybe taking Barrack over here would be a good move. But I think we're going to go to River's break first. Because if we're going over there, I may want to reconfigure my party. So we'll go to River's break first. Yes, it's 3 days. I know. It's a bit painful for me as well, but we'll just have to do what we can. I was hoping actually to drop in there, maybe get a rest. That way our abilities would refresh. Okay. Time for us to be stealthy.
No one will know I was there.
Good. I'm very glad. A couple of things. There's Essa. Or Essa, rather. Take. We've got iron sabatons. Take all. Dry grass protrudes haphazardly from the threadbare and sun-bleached tunic hanging from this post. The glower painted on the burlap sack head glares down over the rough grass beard. It bears a passing resemblance to a certain Archon of Secrets. The scent of baked bread and vegetable stew mingles on the air. Through the window, you can make out a modest dwelling, kept with the kind of order and cleanliness as one would expect of a disfavored command tent. Okay.
Sorry, I can't.
It's okay. Just go around this person for now. Doesn't seem that we can go inside.
I can't.
It's fine. Heavy leather braces, don't really think we need those. Bronze braces, don't think we need those either. Alright, time to have a chat. An older woman tends to a small but verdant patch of farm. Plump gourds and vegetables of vine and root vie for soil and light with the fig tree, its branches drooping with what passes for abundance in the tears. The farmer notices your approach and takes up her shovel as if it were a spear, favouring her left arm with a wince. Vandrian guard. Careful, stranger. I'm no easy mark, and of little worth your time or blood. A few errant strands of thick grey hair, loosed from the band that tamed the rest, frame her deeply lined face. She may be old enough to be my mother, but she holds herself like a warrior trained. Okay, so I'm going to guess that Essa is Clea and Erissa's mother, or at least family. I'm going to say... I'm not going to go straight to what I want. Who are you? I'm the woman who tills the soil, mends these walls, and protects them with her blood. I'm supposed to be here. You're the ones who should be announcing themselves. She points the shovel edge at you. On face, thank you very much for the 36 months, mate. Enjoy your tea. I assume you brought tea. Feisty. I like this old coot. Girl, this old coot has split skulls twice as thick as yours. Good hearing, too. We see Clea. Clea? Clea was my youngest. Why are you asking after her? She lowers the shovel slightly, her eyes widening slightly at the name. Was? Shit. Don't tell me we're too late. I'll have you keep a civil tongue in your head, girl, while you're on my land. She jabs her shovel in Versa's direction as if she could seal the Fury's mouth with it. Sorry, Mom. Verse blinks in surprise at her own weapon. Ah. That's fantastic. Yeah, I'm going to address verse. It's like, wow, really? Yeah, I'm fine. Did you do something to my friend? That's amusing. No, I'm just going to move on. What happened to Clea? She narrows her eyes, her fingers tightening protectively around the shovel. First things first. Call me Essa, daughter of Aspira. Asperia. And this is my homestead, granted me by Queen Viridian Alanta in honor of my service. She swings the shovel's head to encompass the small plastered house and the abutting field. That's an introduction. You got one to match? She points the shovel back towards you. She introduced herself. Even an enemy deserves a name. Essa's blue eyes widen in recognition. You're the one ascended the mountain spire. They say you hung a banner woven of gold light from the battlements. Wouldn't have believed a word of it if I hadn't seen the glow from here. She shakes her head. What does a Fatebinder want with the likes of me? I ain't broken the Overlord's laws. Essa crosses her arms. The mum's look transcends actual parentage. That may well be the case, Camel Spider. It certainly seems to have shook verse a little bit. I'm not giving a clear the gloves that Arissa took from Verse's sister. That's not happening. We came seeking Clea, but that seems a doomed errand. That's with Clea. War consigned her to the void. Lost her at Vendrian's Well Citadel. I told her not to take up arms again. Told her that Kairos had won good and solid, and we owed the Overlord our fealty now. But I suppose I filled her with too much patriotic claptrap as a girl. Maybe she met her end under your blade. The whole of the tale never made it back. Essa cradles herself. Not that that answers why you're here, though. At this point, I will defer to Verse. Verse is a bit bloody-minded about everything, really. But, again, I'm not going to pledge Verse's sister's gloves to the sister, or dead, or otherwise, of the woman who killed her and took them. I'm sorry, Essa, but Arissa has died. Verse frowns down at her scarred hands, then glances away. Oof. Verse really is shooketh. Arissa? Dear girl. Dear, stupid, blind, foolish, arrogant girl. A sob racks her shrunken frame. How did it happen? No. We don't know where she was. She died in Stalwart, aiding the Unbroken against the forces of Kairos. It's my fault. I raised those girls on the romance of war, on tales of bloodying the bastard Tyr and pushing back Azure. How was I to know your armies would come in their lifetime, that the gates of judgment wouldn't hold, or that you'd stride into the tears with a man of stone who could step clean over a curtain wall? Even girls like mine couldn't stand against Kairos. There ain't been nothing like that northern shadow before, able to crush mountains and call earthquakes from a scrap of vellum. There ain't no fighting that, I told them. They didn't listen. Damn them. Of all the damn fool things I told them, the only thing they didn't hear was what mattered. She shuddered out a sigh. A mercenary named Krokus told us that Arissa hunted people for sport, that she displayed their heads on spikes. Reverse well, Verse. What do you know about Cartorius? You said you trained your daughters in the art of battle. Killer Essa. You've told us what we need to know. Time for you to join your... Oh my God. You and Dark Aavak wouldn't get that grim, no matter how many cups of coffee he'd had. My lord. You can be completely irredeemable in this game if you want to be. This is Verse's. We are here to help Verse exact her vengeance. Or better put, to help Verse find closure. Whatever that closure might be. So it's to Verse, this one. Hey, Fiona. Hello, Aavak. Hello, chat. Yay, time for Tyranny. I adore Tyranny. This is my first time playing, so if you are familiar, do be aware. I have no idea what's coming up, nor do I want to know. I'm enjoying this for the first time. But yeah, my goodness, some of the things you can say. What edict did I proclaim during the first one? I proclaimed the edict of fire, I think it was, on the burning library. How are you doing, Fiona? Okay. Well, first, a mercenary out of Lethin's Crossing by the name of Krokus pointed us towards Essa. He painted her a much more vicious killer than you have. Okay, so she went for it. Interesting. That would have been the option I would have taken. If for the fact that the way it was worded when I had the option was a lot more bloody. Verse has a much gentler tongue at the moment. Yeah, it's amazing how different the story plays in this. That's one of the big things that I love about this. A lot of games have choices that have a kind of a faux consequence. Really, the consequence is black, white, evil, good. And it might set you on a path that can be wiggled around a little bit, but there isn't really nuance in the consequence. But this game really feels like you'd need to play it 6 or 7 times to really say that you've felt the breadth of it. Eating some dinner noms and relax. Ah, good. I had some dinner noms before I started streaming. They were also good. If rather heavy. I had a burger. Oh my lord. Krokus, ain't ever heard that nut. She pauses, recognition flickering behind her wet eyes. Bald, bearded man, skill the colour of bronze and thick as a beastman. I knew him by a different name. Right lazy bastard by my reckoning. Only thing he put much effort into was lying his way into a meal and a thong of rings. What justice is there if a man like him lives while my Arissa met the void? There's justice. It was slow and terrible. Verse cracks her knuckles. Aye, there's some comfort there. What do you know about Cartorius? You said you trained your in the art of battle. I'm going to ask about Cartorius. The sage was an older gentleman, smarter than most, like he had the whole Vellum citadel bouncing around in his head, a tad off in the way that magicians so often are, eyes as hungry as a flame. Okay. And your daughters? Aye, their father were a good man, but more suited to farm work than war. She looks up sharply. If you're looking for someone to blame, I'd be the person. I trained them up, taught them the flax, the javelin, and the spear and shield. And they used that knowledge against your precious archons and their armies. Hey, Arissa. Maybe you'd like to shut the fuck up now? Versus lower lip twitches. Ooh. Okay, I can't tell if Verse is trying to protect her from what she thinks I might do, or trying to protect her from what she might do if she keeps up. You get used to it. Verse doesn't mean anything by it. The F-bomb to Verse is no more potent than the word the to anyone else. It's just Verse. Some people got brought up in different ways. What did you teach him about the Overlord? You use all this food yourself, or have you sold it to other people in the well? It is just a part of this. I do sometimes have Again, it's the whole thing with English not being my natural language. I know the word fuck has certain meaning. But to me, it just sounds stupid. It sounds like a silly bunch of sounds that people make with their mouths. And that has no meaning. And it's more the body language, honestly, and the context in which it's used. You could say it and mean something completely endearing by it, honestly. I could easily imagine someone referring to their friends with the word fuck and meaning it in the most charming of ways. And it would be all laughs and smiles and pats on the back. Because it, as a word, has no meaning to me whatsoever. I only stumble over it because of my knowledge of what it might mean to other people. But from my perspective, it's just a silly sound that people make. It actually conveys nothing. Fiona, Aavak, I know the word fuck. Excellent out of context quote. Thank you for this. Damn it, Fiona. Damn it. Oh, Belial. See, you... damn it, Belial. Now that's forever on my quote board now. Look what you did. Look what you did. What did you teach them about the Overlord? That there's never been a graver threat to all of Terratus? That Kairos represents the worst of the powers of man or woman? That such an evil must be resisted at all costs, by any means necessary? What? That directly contradicts what you said before. Aye, I changed my tune in my older, softer years. But as they growed up, I poisoned them against Kairos as thoroughly as if I'd carved it upon their hearts. I think the verse was actually trying to protect it from me. And my position as a fate binder. You use all this food yourself? Or have you sold it to the other people in the well? I've sold some, for rings and whatnot. And without a Kairos damned license too. See, I was hoping that I was going to ask you and you were going to say, yeah, I totally have a license. And I'd be like, well, I mean, you clearly are showing that you're willing to accept the laws. What you did in the past, well, that's different. But now you're a law-abiding citizen. But no. Anything else you want to tell me? Naming a child for Kairos is a capital offense, ain't it? I imagine naming a pig for Kairos ain't no better. Care to meet Kairos, the overpig? He's around back. I mean, you know, if you're going to die, you may as well get it all out of your system. You see what's happening here, don't you, Binder? Verse sighs, his shoulders sagging. Yeah, I see what she's doing. She's trying to get me to kill her so she can go see your daughters. What matter? There's no matter here, Binder. Please tell me you're not going through with this. A life sentence, left to her grief. That's punishment enough. Or I find Essa guilty of fomenting dissent against the Overlord. The sentence is death. First, carry out the execution. If I find her guilty, it'll be me who passes judgment and execution. Yeah, this lady's absolutely asking for it. And there's the thing here is, as Tunon's adjudicator, she has broken Kairos' law. She has told me that she has broken Kairos' law. In my capacity as Fatebinder, if I were to uphold the law, so far my character has mostly been law-abiding. Mostly. Almost every act I've done up until Bled and Mark was lawful. And it could be justified as lawful. I never broke any law in doing what I did, and in almost everywhere I could argue that what I did was in service of Kairos. If I let her live at this point, having her name a pig after Kairos, I mean, at this point, it is full bore. I would be not upholding the law. And yes, it is just a suicide cop. Almost certainly it is. But even still, the stuff that she's saying about her daughters was very much a truth. But that's aside. Now, where I'm going with this is that up until Bled and Mark, I could say with clear conscience that everything I had done was in Kairos' name. Whilst it might not have been the anticipated course of action, it was the honest course of action I took in pursuit of Kairos' law, in service of Kairos. I deemed neither Graven Ash nor Narat to be capable. Ultimately, I took the Spire. I claimed the Spire for Kairos. Didn't give it to them because they're not worthy of it. They wouldn't do with it what needed to be done. They just end up bickering again. And then Bled and Mark. And then starting to do things I absolutely knew I wasn't really meant to do. I could probably kind of twist the justification into, yeah, I'm sort of doing this for Kairos, though. It's just not in the way that Kairos would have wanted it. But it's better for Kairos this way. Basically, I know better than Kairos. Up until that point, you could almost imagine a defense being built. But if you boil it down to its raw component, it is, even if I was serving Kairos, I'm basically saying I know better than Kairos knows. And that's not a defensible position. At this point, and my character is definitely intelligent enough, and more to the point, wise enough, to understand where all of that goes and what implication that has. I think we've willfully chosen a route that is now where we are abiding by alternate laws. These are alternative laws that we are following to the latter. And as such, we've got a lot more wiggle room with this kind of thing. A life sentence left to her grief. That's punishment enough. Yeah, this is lawful evil, the setting. Wrath with Tunon and loyalty with Verse. Yeah, I knew that was coming. I could have easily gotten loyalty with Tunon, and there's a part of me that really wants to, because Tunon is effectively the embodiment of justice, but justice as set out by Kairos, not inherently justice. Hey, so Irissa, she killed one of my sisters. I always thought I needed to avenge them to make it right because I'd failed them. But actually talking to you, it's cleared some stuff up. I guess what I'm saying is I miss my sisters and you miss your daughters, and that's just the way of things. Essa nods numbly, turns and shuffles towards his squat farmhouse. Well, it's not the conclusion I thought Verse was going to go for, but ultimately it's the conclusion I'm going to let her have. Verse releases a long sigh, bends down and plucks a round red tomato from a vine. Her thumb slides across its skin, then presses lightly against it, dimpling the vegetable. She tosses it from hand to hand and turns with you. That's the kind of writing that I love in this game. Oh my lord. That was some uncharacteristic hesitation on your part. Irissa and Clea are dead. What does that mean for your sisters? Hello, Whifflet. How you doing, mate? Yeah, that's actually right. Tunon may actually be the embodiment of law, not the embodiment of justice. And insofar as the embodiment of law is very cut and dry, whoever sets the laws, those are the laws, not necessarily just ones. I will ask about it.
I didn't realize you knew me so well as to say what is and isn't like me.
Fair enough.
I enjoy killing, Fatebinder. Doesn't mean I think everyone deserves to die.
Also fair enough. But what does this mean for your sisters?
I'm sure Whispers would have something clever to say about frustrated ambitions.
It's ahead and chuckles darkly.
You ever have a friend who almost never speaks? But then every once in a while she slips in the perfect word at the perfect time, and it's the only thing you remember. That was Three Whispers. She was our wiry, flickering shadow with hair like crow's feathers. Preferred close-up work. That was her name, her 3 knives and the sound of air from a punctured lung. It's hard to remember stories about her because she never drew attention.
And yet?
Her old favorite. That I remember. She'd trick a soldier into gutting his own comrade, then open his throat while he was in shock. Beautiful move, and I saw her dance it 12 times.
This is such a strange thing to hear verse talk so poetically and so beautifully about something which is ultimately incredibly gory and visceral and foul. I remember a passage from one of my English exams where we had to describe a page out of a text where it was just, I believe it was describing something in World War II, and how the puncture wound of a bullet exiting a man's chest created the blood splatter that resembled a rapidly blooming flower erupting from his back. From his chest, sorry, and I focused very much on the use of a very poetic, beautiful description for something which was ultimately describing something quite chaotic and bloody. It's I don't know, juxtaposition, is that the correct term? I forget, but
Whispers knew her histories and letters, knew borders and houses and heraldry. Even knew a few sigils and kept us from bleeding out more than once.
She runs a hand over her feathers.
Whispers and me, we were more than sisters sometimes. Not often, and nothing holding. But yeah, she read a body as easy as a scroll.
Fair enough. Morbid Warmage, thank you very much for the resubscription there. 20 months. Yay, Tyranny, such a great game. Indeed, such a great game. And what an awesome time for you to run. Sounds nice.
Was nice.
Oh, that was worth it. I care more for the loyalty of my allies than I do for the loyalty of some distant Archon. And yet, there is a part of me that has a soft spot for Tunon. Of all the Archons so far, Tunon seems the most redeemable. Okay, let's go. She bites into the tomato, and a small bead of juice rolls down her chin. And that is the end of that. Okay, that's all done. Oh, her 3 Whispers stance has been upgraded. Really now. So, Red Geyser, Seeking Sheath, 3 Whispers. User, plus 30 to dodge. Enter a battle meditative stance that focuses on dodging enemy attacks, while in this stance, Unbound and Mocking Iron are also empowered. Okay. I may actually have to have a look at you. Let me see you, Verse. We shall offer a sacrifice in the name of the Overpig. A bacon sacrifice, yeah. The Overpig. I hope that there is actually an Overpig around here somewhere. Duelist Skirmisher. Born of Blood and Fire, improved attack, mobile recovery, sense weakness, skull splitter, nimble, light reflexes, piercing arrows. Duelist, know your enemy, lethal opening, gravedigger, mocking iron, here we are. Burst taunts her foe, enraging them and forcing them to attack her for a brief time. I'm not really into that right now. Fused Embrace. Printing Death. Blade Dancer. I really should have Verse using her blades more, because I've definitely put more into that. Unbound and Mocking Iron. Let me check that again. Unbound. Is that perhaps one of these? Don't think I saw it down here. Oh, there we are. Verse attacks all nearby foes and vanishes, appearing next to her target and leaving behind a spiritual remnant of one of her Scarlet Fury sisters. Wow, okay. That actually sounds quite impressive. But we've got a missive, I believe, on the subject of the spires. Greetings, Aavak. You are correct. There are spires all across Taratus. The exact distribution of these monuments fuels all sorts of debate and speculation, but two facts seem commonplace. Most spires are built near old walls. Your mountain spire is a notable exception, and nearly every culture that predated Kairos has some local myth to explain the builders of these spires. I believe the Tiersmen cite the Older Realms as their local name for the spire old wall architects, but nobody knows for sure. And of course, where Kairos has brought proper civilization, the origin of the spires simply isn't discussed in good company. Here's what I think you need to know. First, the spires behave as arcane lodestones. There is a constant field of magical strength around a spire. If you imagine a mystic sea resting atop our world, the spires seem to spin and churn this magic, creating a spell cast with even modest effort will materialize with powerful results. Second, and I'd say most tellingly, Kairos has laws against entering the old walls, but there are no laws against the spires. You can infer from this that means Kairos has no issue with the lay folks messing with spires, but wishes to keep us safe from the old walls. Or you could think that, like an old overlord, and know that if you place a rule against something, you make it forbidden and desirable. Now, I find it telling that Kairos forbids the hallways that lead to such spires, but does not paint a target on the spires themselves. Last, but not least, as a young Fatebinder, I once had to oversee the case of a man who had built a shrine to Kairos around the base of a spire in the far southeast. I could find no evidence of falsity or slander. His shrine was a most reverent and loving tribute as I've ever seen. At one point, though, this man claimed he had evidence that Kairos was here back in negative 50. He had merely uttered those words, and my senior binder swung the axe, then and there. Being the new girl at the court, I said nothing, but I have long wondered why such a comment should require death instead of the traditional removal of the tongue. Why is that highlighted like that? Is that perhaps just a... it might just be some sort of highlighting error there. Because usually if you highlight over something, it has something to say. Just a glitch, I think, on that one. But that's very interesting. Said the Kairos is there, negative 50. I wonder what that could imply. Does the calendar... I haven't got a mark for the calendar. Let me go into journal and to the notes. No, not the notes. The encyclopedia date. Do we have anything for the date? Do you wield? No. I want something. No, I don't care for that. Character statistics, no. Combat mechanics, no. Affliction and injuries, no. Boons, no. Equipment, no. Locations, possibly. Law. What is our calendar? Calendar, there we go. When does 0 start? The calendar of Kairos Empire is divided into 14 spans. Each span is 26 days long and is divided into 5 weeks, called fists, of 5 days each. The last day of the span is Kairos Day, a day of rest. The days of each fist are named after roles that Kairos considers important to the Empire: Warrior's Day, Healer's Day, Judge's Day, Farmer's Day, and Smith's Day. The year of Kairos calendar are counted from the day of the Overlord's first edict, and known as the True Reckoning. Okay, so it wasn't at Kairos's birth. Well, that would make sense. then. That would all kind of tie up. Because obviously if it was like, Kairos was born on this day, our savior, blah, 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 0 starts. If nothing else, this would imply that Kairos, unless the man was talking of Kairos as a freshly born babe, is at least 50 years old, but probably much older, if this was from the first edict. So that's giving us a kind of idea of Kairos' age, then. Assuming that whatever this person said was true. So... it's not the day that Kairos took power, but maybe those are one and the same. The first edict in taking power, the true reckoning. Interesting. So perhaps talking about Kairos before Kairos is powerful is forbidden. Maybe implying that Kairos is mortal is forbidden. But what if the spires were a source of Kairos' power? Being at that spire allowed Kairos to gain the power of the edicts, because that's at least 50 years before. Very interesting indeed. Very, very interesting indeed. Okay. Inquire about edicts and their nature. Send it. There you go. Okay, I also want to check on reputations with Tunon. I don't imagine it's particularly good. Yeah, not great. Might have even pushed us at +3. You spared Essa at River's Break. How much of a difference did that make to verse? Oh, that really, really mattered to verse that I didn't kill her. Okay, well, you know. My Anna's opinion of me matters.